Thanks for choosing to listen to this Late Night Linux Family podcast. We're only able to do this because of the people who support us. None of our shows are paywalled, but our Patreon supporters can get most episodes early and never hear any ads. Learn more at latenightlinux.com/support or support us by telling a friend or colleague about everything we do. Hello and welcome to episode 129 of Linux After Dark. I'm Joe.
I'm Chris.
I'm Gary.
And I'm May.
Welcome back all. Recently, I saw a post on Mastodon from Mike. Computers were good enough to do everything we need them to do 10 years ago. Everything since then is bullshit. If you can't do your job on a computer from 2016, you're just bad at your job. That's a fact. I don't make the rules. And then he goes on to say there's too many computer games now and stop making more computer immediately. This is clearly a shit post, but I thought that sounds like a challenge to me. So I know we've all got old hardware. I assumed we'd have something from roughly 10 years ago. So I said, let's see. Could we do stuff with a 10-year-old computer? The spoiler is yes, but newer computers are obviously better. But how did we get on with this challenge? Gary, you had quite a lot of frustration, I believe.
Well, to begin with, it was actually too easy, so I had to buy a worse computer, to be honest.
Why?
So the machine that I pulled out the cupboard was the Precision 3620 from our previous £20 computer challenge episode. And that machine has a Skylake Xeon E3, which is roughly equivalent to a 6700K. 32 gigs of DDR4, an NVMe drive. It had a dedicated GPU that I had to pull out because it needed the legacy Radeon driver, which I just wasn't getting on with installing.
But that Xeon has got integrated graphics then?
But yes, this is a E3 Xeon, so is effectively just a consumer i7 with a Xeon badge slapped on it. Don't at me. There are probably technical reasons why it's not just an i7.
Yeah, it's probably got more AES type stuff and whatnot in it.
Probably, maybe ECC support. I don't know. Anyway, this was a machine I bought for 20 quid. I don't really care about digging into its specs that much.
And that was too good then?
Well, the bottom line was that the only noticeably annoying thing was that it only had HDMI 1.4, which meant that I could only run the 4K display I've got at 30 hertz. So I had to go and dig out a DisplayPort cable. I know. Woe is me.
As me and Joe will tell you, 1080p is all you need, so that's your fault. You know.
Exactly. That's clearly your fault for being too young and having too good a pair of eyes.
But yeah, the reality was that actually that machine was indistinguishable in day-to-day work from the Ryzen 7 P14S that I usually daily drive.
So is that 4 cores, 8 threads, something like that?
Yeah, 4 cores, 8 threads, 32 gig of 2133 DDR4. And it's a pretty average, middle-of-the-road precision workstation from that era.
My concern would be the power usage of that.
It wasn't that bad. It was like 80 watts while I was doing stuff, which, to be honest with you, probably isn't that much different from something more modern.
I mean, yeah, if you're using a modern desktop, you're going to have the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think computers have got that much more efficient since 10 years ago, particularly workstation grade machines.
I think that most of them have gotten worse.
Well, yeah, my 13900K machine idles at about 30 watts, 35. Or maybe 40, actually. It's a lot. It's more than I want it to, put it that way.
Yeah, and this was with my average daily workload open, with the kilowatt plugged in, just glancing at it as I was on a Teams call. And somewhere around 70 to 90 watts is where it's at.
So did you feel like you were cheating then? Because you said you started there. What happened?
Well, yeah, I just felt like I clearly wasn't getting the experience that I had expected. And I also travel quite a bit for work and clearly couldn't take this machine with me. So when I was leaving the house and going to see a customer or going to work in a coffee shop or something, I was still taking the Ryzen 7 ThinkPad from 2 years ago, which meant that I wasn't getting the full experience of daily driving a 6th gen / 10-year-old machine. So I went on to Facebook Marketplace and I found a ThinkPad T470. However, this was a special model T470 with the 6th gen i5 6200U. And that machine was £30. Now, there are some caveats here. It was missing a battery. and it was advertised with 16 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig SSD. When I turned up to get the machine, it had a 500 gig spinning disk, but did have 16 gigs of DDR4. So I knocked another 10 quid off and then used that money towards a battery. So all in, I was about 45 quid for an i5 6200, 16 gigs of RAM, and an SSD that I had in the drawer.
That these days is not too bad.
It felt like about the right amount of money for that machine. Now, getting parts for it was a whole other story. Like finding a battery which actually worked and passed Lenovo's validation checks took a couple of tries. But I got there, and the battery was about 20, 25 quid, something in there.
So how was it to use then?
So as a machine to use for my day-to-day work, I think it's kind of summarized by what Joe said. It was bottom of the barrel. I could very much just about scrape by for 80% of the tasks that I do day to day. Where it became very difficult was heavy multimedia stuff, which I do somewhat of. So Teams calls with more than 2 or 3 participants in them were a real problem. Same with Zoom. I would just get audio breaking up or random people's video dropping out as the machine tried to save CPU cycles, presumably.
So that Jitsi feel then.
Yeah, it felt like I was on Jitsi, but using a platform which actually works.
Don't at us, we're using Jitsi now, albeit just for voice.
So that was a problem. And then anything involving audio production, which I do a not unreasonable amount of, again, was doable, but noticeably slow.
Yeah. You see, I used basically the same combination, sort of. I've got a small form factor Lenovo box, which is a 6700K. So like the top of the range i7 for the time, 10 years ago. And I edited an episode on that and whatnot. And I've also got my X270, which is a year 2 new for this challenge, but that's the i5 and it's equivalent to the i7 a year before because Intel was really not innovating much at that time. So I kind of cheated a little bit, but I've been using that laptop as my kind of daily laptop driver, but I've not been doing actual work with it. And it's been fine for me for just basically watching YouTube, editing documents, and watching Sopranos, which I'm redoing at the moment.
Yeah, all of that stuff I think was perfectly fine on this machine. It was just when I got to heavier office stuff like PowerPoint presentations in Office 365 with 40 plus slides in them made it really chug. Having multiple pinned tabs open in the browser, stuff like having Google Mail, Google Calendar, Telegram Web always open in the browser, which are things that I normally do without thinking about. They definitely made it chug. But then when I was running my personal browser plus work browser plus Teams calls and things, there just were not many CPU cycles left. I found myself closing stuff out before I did certain pieces of work, knowing that I'd need to free up some CPU.
And it's definitely not RAM because you had 16 gigs, right?
Yeah, RAM-wise, unless I was doing something particularly heavy or there was a really poorly written application, not looking at you, Office 365. It was absolutely fine. Yeah, I could fit most of what I needed to do in that, and browsers were efficient enough to pause tabs, and I just clicked on them and they reloaded, and that was okay. The biggest Achilles heel, I think, was just how much hardware has gotten better since 2016. A 1366-768 TN panel is horrible. Like, just objectively bad, and I'd kind of forgotten how bad laptop displays really were.
I see my X270 has got a 1080p screen that's actually quite nice. It's not the brightest, but the viewing angle and stuff is fine. Not as good as a modern display, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, whilst I'm in Club 1080, I wouldn't want to be in Club 720 or 766.
Yeah, it was objectively bad. And actually, I found when I did take the laptop to work from a coffee shop or something, it did hinder my productivity. That I found myself using a lot of workspaces in GNOME to switch between stuff, whereas normally I'd just do at least half tiling on a 1080p display. But otherwise, with a new, albeit knockoff battery, I was getting 5 or 6 hours of battery life out of it. It was running relatively cool because obviously the i5s of that generation were only dual core. So that wasn't an issue at all. And other than ports have changed and stuff, which I had to adapt to carrying A to C cables to charge phones and stuff with, it was okay. Like, I probably could get away with it if I really had to. Probably in a year's time, I'd really, really need to upgrade though, I reckon.
Well, I edited an episode, like I said, on it, and it was just fine on this 6700K. It's only got 8 gigs of RAM, actually, and that wasn't a problem. I was quite surprised by that. But everything was just that little bit more painful. Like, once I was actually editing, it wasn't too bad. It's a tiny bit laggy here and there. But it's more the processing of the audio that was painful. Like converting the YouTube video with the mythical Python script thing that I use. I was getting 2.44 times real time versus my normal workstation, the 13900K, I get about 8 times real time.
Yeah, I was finding as I was doing things like that I would just set it off and go and make a cup of tea and come back.
Yeah.
And that is, I guess, how we used computers 10 years ago. Like, I would have never expected to be able to de-reverb half an hour's worth of audio in 40 seconds like I can on my MacBook. But, on that machine, it took half an hour and I just went and had a cup of tea and watched a YouTube video and then came back and it was done.
Yeah, thankfully I didn't have to do any de-reverb, but I do the mouth de-click thing. So, gross mouth noises, which I can't stand. I can't stand listening to my old kind of pre-2020 episodes because I wasn't doing that back then. And it's just, I can't stand those disgusting mouth noises. But that takes a lot of processing to do. And it kind of throws all the cores at it. And normally for like an hour's worth of recording, it'll take on my normal workstation, I don't know, 30 seconds, maybe not even. Whereas it was taking like several minutes with this. And it was just, I couldn't just watch it do its thing. I had to set it off and then do something else. I mean, probably just doom scrolling, to be honest. But it did definitely make my work day longer as a result. Like, it made it just frustrating. And where I can normally just like smash and edit out really quickly and then have me time again, I just found myself sitting there for realistically probably an extra hour versus what it normally would to edit an episode.
Yeah, that's broadly where I landed with mine. I don't have a huge amount to say about what I did. I had a little Elite Desk 800 G3 Mini. So it's like 6th or 7th gen. And in it is an i3 6100T. So if you benchmark the kind of 2-core full-thread laptops that you two have mentioned, it's about the same. I installed Linux Mint Debian Edition and it was fine. It was really snappy, only 8 gigs of RAM. One thing that really helped is that it has a PCIe M.2 slot, and I benchmarked, it was like 3000 write speed. So I think I would struggle now with the SATA SSD. But broadly for general desktop use, I was fine. I did also install Kinoite. It was about the same in terms of general usage, video playback, all the stuff you said, Joe. I did spin up a Windows 11 VM because, it was what you might do in your job. And I do that sometimes. So I obviously had to limit it to 4 gigs of RAM. Again, I could do it, but I had to be very patient and close things in the background.
Yeah, you could do it, but you just wouldn't want to.
No, that's it. So depending on what I was doing on an average working day, taking this shit post at pure value that, if you can't do your job, I could do my job on some days with this machine.
I could do my job every day with it. It would just be really frustrating.
There's some stuff I couldn't do. I would run out of grunt.
Like what?
Virtual machine stacks. One Windows VM is fine. A cluster of local virtual machines for testing, although increasingly we're not doing that locally. So yeah, I think it's fine, but we have moved on. So it's okay to move on.
I feel like I took this challenge both more and less seriously than you all, because I can't do it for work. There's just so much stuff installed on the managed work laptop that it's never happening. So instead, I replaced my personal machines with it. So that's my gaming computer. I replaced with older. I mean, this was going to be the space heater, actually. It's a machine with an i5 6600K, which I did manage to overclock to 4.2 gigahertz, which was pretty cool. And then I replaced my laptop with a Surface Pro 5 or 2015, depending on who you ask, with a 7th gen, a Kaby Lake i5 in it, which was basically a Skylake i7, so I figured it was close enough. I didn't have any issues with the screens that you all had. That Surface has an amazing screen.
Yeah, but weren't they like $3,000 or something back then?
Well, yeah, but now you can have them for like 50, so what of it?
Fair enough.
The laptop, you can definitely tell that you're using something older. I'm used to the framework laptop with an 11th gen i7 in it. And I can tell. Things like opening Firefox in the first place, or opening the Bitwarden extension inside of Firefox, it's noticeably slower. It's like, hit the button, wait a couple seconds for a thing to happen. But it's not like impossible to use. I wrote the documents that I needed to officiate a wedding on it. It was fine. It runs LibreOffice great. Big surprise. I wouldn't want to carry it around every day. Every once in a while I do carry it around because it's the newest thing that I have that has pen support and is very portable. For the desktop, it's basically unnoticeable in day-to-day tasks between my Ryzen 7 5700X3D desktop and this i5 6600K. If you're just going around the desktop doing some web browsing, stuff like that, it's really hard to notice once you're on a desktop CPU from that era. I certainly didn't notice at all the difference between the two. Where things got worse, though, certainly was in playing games.
Especially as you're into your VR stuff.
Yeah, I did get the best VR experience I've ever had on Linux on this machine, and I think that's just from the software getting a little bit better, not because I've tried it on anything newer lately. But when I say the best experience I've ever had, I mean, I didn't throw up, but it wasn't great.
I nearly threw up watching the video that you made of it.
Yeah, there was something seriously wrong with the VR compositor. It was not putting frames out to my headset at the speed that it was actually generating them on the hardware. I have no idea why that was happening. I did have a GTX 1080 Ti in at that point, which is an amazing GPU still. I ended up switching that out for a GTX 1060 because the 1080 Ti came out in 2017 and is newer than 10 years old, and I felt bad about it.
So how did you get on with the 1060? Presumably you're not going to be playing anything more than 1080p with that card.
And I don't have anything more than 1080p. I don't play games at more than 1080p except for the VR games, which, they play at the resolution they play at. Steam kind of manages the resolution it's sending per eye, and usually it's not terribly noticeable. VR didn't happen after that first try. I just didn't bother with it. Helldivers 2, I turned down to 720p and pretty low settings, and it kind of ran. It was running at 100% CPU in the lobby, which is not necessarily a good sign. And I was only playing single player, so I wasn't hosting, and I was playing on level 5 of 10, which is really easy, doesn't put a lot of strain on things, doesn't put a lot of things on the map. It ran okay, except for starting up. Like every time something new loaded in, every time it's trying to do a new effect, it hitches for like half a second. And that is incredibly annoying and almost unplayable. But once you get into it and you start going for like a couple of hours, that stops happening. I don't recommend it, but it could do. I played through the entirety of Dim Haven, which was a very good puzzle game. And in the ending section where there's a ton of geometry everywhere, it didn't run the greatest. It was certainly better after I overclocked it. Took it from like 32 frames per second with dips to like 42 with dips, which was way easier to play. And it's okay. I don't really want to go back to it. I had to run like Pacific Drive at really low settings, so it looked awful, but the game was still the game. It runs the greatest game of all time, Outer Wilds, and that's great too.
Yeah, what about your older games? I mean, Mike said in this shitpost, there are enough computer games to play now too. Your life isn't long enough to play all the ones we have. It's time to stop making more, just play them. I mean, there must be some games from that era that are still good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was playing Deep Rock Galactic, which I don't have the release date in front of me, but it's a fairly old game at this point, and fairly easy to render, and that runs at 60 frames per second on medium-ish settings. No problem. It's just fine. You can find games that are fun to play on this hardware. It's not like you're going to have trouble with that or anything like that. You can find games that are fun to play on integrated Intel graphics. No problem with that. Just play Stardew Valley. You'll have a lot of fun for a lot of hours. But when you are trying to play newer games, you either have to have really low settings or something a little newer, higher end than this. YouTube, while I was doing this challenge, started recommending a channel called Budget Builds Official, who buys like $50 gaming computers and sees what you can get out of them. And honestly, you can get a lot out of a little. It might not be the best experience you can get, but it's still a good experience.
Well, you can always play old school RuneScape on your computer that you cleaned with eucalyptus oil.
I think generally going back to this era is okay, but I would want to have 4 processor cores, an NVMe if possible, which was doable but higher end. And also I do feel like desktops are better because I've brought up a benchmark here of the various CPUs we've mentioned. And of course, the one I used, turbo speed isn't supported because the base clock is 3.2 gigahertz because it's plugged into the wall all the time. If you're scaling up and down and unplugging, I think that becomes a bit painful. A SATA SSD, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a lot of read-write, I think it does start to become noticeable these days that you don't have it. And I think as Gary said when we first introduced this, if you went to 2018 instead of 2016, things would suddenly be better.
Yeah, well, 2018 gets you into an 8th gen machine, which in laptop world is a quad-core CPU,
yeah,
right? And the next couple of weeks, I'm going to spend using an L380, and already having spent the time to set that machine up, it is noticeably better. I mean, it's way worse in terms of build quality, but in terms of performance, display, connectivity, it is night and day.
Right. What we haven't mentioned here throughout all of this is that this is in the era where AMD kind of couldn't make a CPU to save their life. And 2017 is the year that AMD kicked Intel in the pants. So, you know, a Ryzen 7 1700 from 2018, 2017 is worse single core than an i5, but you go a couple years later, a Ryzen 5 3600 matches that single thread. You can get it 2-day for $60, potentially on a board, and you get 3 times the threads.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about the 2 ThinkPads that I referenced, right, this 6th gen machine I paid 45 quid for. Now, the L380 was the machine I bought for our £50 challenge. They're not £50 anymore. They're more £75. But I think I would just save the extra £25 to £30 and get the 8th gen.
Yeah, it's worth the extra money, isn't it? Definitely.
It is noticeably better. I don't know what the benchmarks say, but the 8th gen machine absolutely is a machine that I could do my job on and not even notice.
I would like to interject with quite a funny little tidbit that happened as we mentioned this amongst all the hosts of this podcast network. A certain presenter from Ireland popped up because Gary was complaining about the video calling and mentioned that his off-site machine has a 3rd gen i7.
Well, it was worse than that. His off-site machine was a 3rd gen i7, but his primary laptop was a 3rd gen i5, the original Sputnik XPS.
So we might moan, but you know, you can have your daily driver be this era. And I think especially if it has been gradually over the years and you might have upgraded the RAM, the storage, it's not terrible, right? It's just I'd prefer not to.
I think I could get away with it if I wasn't video calling all day, every day. I think that was the biggest Achilles heel for me. I could just be more patient with the other things. Now, whether my employer could be more patient with the other things is it's a slightly different thing nowadays when everyone's using the thing we don't talk about to accelerate their work. But for me, writing documents and spreadsheets and updating Jira tickets and the sort of stuff that I do every day, I think it would be just fine.
The ultimate question for you, though, Gary, is will you finally admit that you can't daily drive a Core 2 Duo anymore?
I can no longer do my current job on a Core 2 Duo. I think the 6th Gen i5 is absolutely bottom of the barrel, and I'm traveling for the next couple of weeks and will be taking an 8th Gen machine as my beta and not this 6th Gen machine.
Because you did think about it, didn't you? But you've decided against it.
I briefly considered it. I mean, this machine is better built. The battery is obviously new, so that's better. But I just can't do it. I know that I'm going to have to present things. I know that I'm probably going to be pulled into a video call. I'm probably going to have to record something, and I just can't quite trust the 6th Gen machine to do it.
Well, I think that Mike is wrong then with his shit post. At least for you, Gary.
Well, he's right if he is talking about a desktop machine. But yes, I couldn't do my day-to-day job on a desktop machine because I have to leave my house. And maybe having to leave my house makes me bad at my job.
Yeah. Well, if I had to leave my house, I couldn't do it with a laptop of that era, but I can with a desktop. But I tell you what, even with that 6700K machine, where it was kind of fine, the next edit I did on my 13900K machine, it was like, this is so much better. It really, really made me appreciate it. It's like being forced to use Windows for a bit and then going back to Linux. It makes you really, really appreciate what we have now. And with that then, we should probably get out of here. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, but until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Chris.
I've been Gary.
And I've been May.
See you later.